Jacques, I'm going to ask Jacques to jump on the call with me. Guys, we are very privileged to have Jacques Grange here with us today. He's one of the directors at Outsource CFO and a lifelong friend of mine. We've been through a lot of trenches together over the last Jacques, what is it now? 14 odd years. I would imagine if you include varsity probably.
Yeah, like 14, 15, eh?
Goodness, they're ticking over for sure. We're getting younger in the process, right?
Definitely.
Guys, I have Jacques here to share with us about finance. The world of finance and accounting it's changed quite drastically in the last 5 years prior to COVID hitting, and then COVID hit, and now this massive shift to digital and to automation has just been super accelerated by the environment we found ourselves in, because all of a sudden, lots of companies and business owners didn't actually have access to their accountants. Their accountants didn't have access to their systems, and so lots of new solutions had to be found. So, Jacques, I'd like just kind of kick us off with these kind of trends in the finance and accounting industry that entrepreneurs should really take note of. Like, what should a business owner really know about what's happening with how finance and accounting is done in an SME space?
Yeah, no, thanks. I think, like you mentioned, obviously there's a lot that has been happening in the last 5 years with the explosion in data that launched the fourth industrial revolution, which was in its own sense already a big game changer. But with that, like you mentioned, COVID. So that just created a bigger need for, I guess, to an extent, what was already there, but especially like everyone would know, remote working, the need for cloud, and with that came the need for cloud and working on the cloud, and with that came the need to ensure that everything is secure. I mean, it showed how the market is sensitive for something like WhatsApp happening, and just that dependability as well. And in the finance part, some people would be aware of in South Africa, Sage going down at stages, and that just created a scenario for some entrepreneurs where they didn't have dependable access. So I think those are key things, is going to the cloud, but with going to the cloud is making sure that the data is secure, but at the same time dependable, and that you have access to that. And other trends that came with taking things to the cloud is automizing processes. I think Donnie spoke about that as one of their 3 core focus areas. But with the fourth industrial revolution starting off, there's just been so much opportunity through different softwares coming to the forefront in automizing processes, and just a lot of those things that previously took time. And I think with that, it had the result that there's accelerated access to data and information, making things like obtaining finance so much easier with platforms like Bridgement. It just being able to, within 24 hours, get access to cash if you're on some of these cloud platforms, which is a game changer in going through difficult times, which wasn't there previously. So I think, to summarize it, in terms of the platforms for sharing data and working together on things, has opened so many avenues to move quicker and closing on opportunities.
No, sure. I think you're capturing it really well, Jacques. That's definitely a lot of food for thought in terms of where things are, where they've come from and where they're going right now. Jacques, we've spent a lot of time the last while talking about this kind of concept of almost like a perfect finance function or a world-class finance function for a scale-up size company. Like throwing the ideas around of like, what does that practically look like and what the structure is for that. If I were to throw that question out to you to speak to our audience today about, what does a perfect finance function look like for a growing business in the current environment, how would you go about almost like laying that out for them?
Yeah, I think I'll share my screen just to make it easier, and you should be seeing it round about now. But yeah, this is obviously something that we've been working on at Outsource CFO as well. But it's just about what's those components for an ideal financial function, whether it's 2021, whichever year we're at. And we've broken it down in this hierarchy of financial needs, that I know took a lot of your labor of love as well. But just this being some of the different components to a good financial function. And what I realize is that a lot of businesses focus on the first two, if even at all. So we're starting off with an accurate basic financial information, making sure that everything that goes in is accurately documented. And then on the second base, we have compliance and assurance. And I find that's where most businesses stop short, at least if they can please SARS and the bank. That's as far as their financial function stretches. But as we can see, that falls almost so short of being able to do that strategic direction decisions that Donnie also spoke of, and maximizing profit and cash. So the different layers that we have here, we spoke about the first two. Third one is standardized operating procedures, so that it's laid out how procedures work. And then on top of that, automation. And what I've seen a lot is people would like to do automation first because it's such a buzzword. But if you don't have your standard operating procedures in place, there's nothing to automate, right? So that's an important thing, just to get the priorities right. And once you have that as a nice base, then that enables the entrepreneur to have that advanced financial information to measure your KPIs or your OKRs, as Donnie mentioned. Look at how to maximize profit and cash through that planning, and then also going into strategic direction, looking at your BAG and how you're going to pivot your business in those directions. And I think in terms of an ideal financial function, it should enable the owners or entrepreneur to be in the know of what's happening in the business and to know what to do next, and that it's not only a knock-on effect for them. And I think that's, if I have to summarize it, it would be the combination of these components that really helps in that sense.
Sure, Jacques. No, I mean, that's amazing. We could probably stand still on each one of those layers for quite a while and keep the audience busy. But let me leave it at, if you guys need to speak to Jacques about this, this concept of a perfect finance function that can take the hassle out for founder teams and for management teams in terms of managing the finance and ultimately getting the right financial information and peace of mind from the finance function to be able to focus on the strategic direction of the company, like Jacques now mentioned, and like Donnie also mentioned. I think that's absolutely critical. So thanks for that. That's a beautiful description. Jacques, the last thing I just want to chat about is just the financial tools, the technologies that you love at the moment, like, what you would advise entrepreneurs to have a look at, to be able to think about, what tech and tools do I need to run a good finance function? We had that middle layer of automation there. I know that's one of the very exciting elements of it, but how would you address those pillars when you think about the tools to implement?
Yeah, so in terms of, like we mentioned, the basics first, it would be ideal to have your accounting systems on the cloud, depending on the size of your business. And we found that something like Xero is amazing in that. And from there, if you have it, Xero, for instance, you can build a lot of other plugins in there that automizes other processes. And one of these is cash flow, specifically in the time that we're in. Business owners aren't always sure when that customer is going to pay or how long it's going to be outstanding. And there's a cash flow tool called cash flow forecasting, where you can build these different scenarios, which is updated by your past historic information in Xero. And so instead of having someone spend hours updating a spreadsheet, by the time it's finished, it's no longer relevant almost anymore. You can actually have it in real time, and that's really exciting. So I found, if I have to point out specifically one, there's so many, but in terms of, like they say, cash is king. So if you can have eyes on that, it really makes it easier.
I love that. Yeah, it plays right into Donnie's number one thing also for this time. It's just making sure you keep a handle on cash. You make sure you find ways to preserve cash and you manage it smartly, because I think lots of companies have learned the lesson of what happens when you run out of cash, or when you get very, very close to run out of cash. And I once read there's nothing that ages a director team as much as running out of cash within the company. And I think that's probably quite relatable to a lot of entrepreneurs. Some of those some of those tight months are, when the guys sweat, when the guys add their gray hairs or lose some of their hair, and we can all attest that everyone is tempted to build a company for sure. So Jacques, I think that's what we have time for today. I would love to chat to you more about this. I think it's a really relevant topic, and we should probably unpack this in a proper full session at some stage. But thank you for sharing your expertise and your time here today. It's a privilege to chat to you, and good luck with everything you're busy with on that side.
Yes, thanks, Lau.
Thanks, sir.
Hey, Lau here, one of the founders of Outsource CFO. If you enjoyed this video, make it official. Click subscribe.